Serial at Midnight. So he's known for his deep passion for all things pop culture, especially movies, and classic cinema, and vintage TV, comic books, and retro collectibles, music. Um, his website, serialatmidnight.com, as well as his YouTube site. He's been one of my go-to sources for nostalgia since I hopped into this YouTuber community about 4 years ago, and, with the promise not to ask you what your favorite movie is or your favorite item in your collection, I'm just gonna bring you in. And I finally welcome Heath to the conversation.
Hello, 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 hello. It's great to
Oh, you're
be
not
here,
helping.
here. Okay, for real though, I can vamp if we need to do some stuff behind the scenes. Also, if I put myself, are you hearing echoes on me right now? Testing 1, 2. Echo. Is there an echo?
It's so weird. I'm hearing it come from somewhere, but I don't know where it is.
I'm gonna go on mute and see if you hear, because I want to make sure it's not my computer feeding into yours. I'm gonna go on mute for a second.
Okay. It's like a strange delay. I'm, like, lowering my alert volume, everything. Okay, so go ahead and speak. Let's see.
All right, testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Sibilance.
Privilege. See, one of the reasons I like, following you, especially on YouTube, is the relatability. I know you have that thing for nostalgia, and sometimes you'll bring up, like, an old TV show or something, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I totally remember that," and I haven't thought about that since I was a kid, sitting with a bowl of cereal on a Saturday morning, maybe waiting for Electra Woman and Dyna Girl or something like that,
Do you know what I'm
and
watching
all of
right
a sudden, you're
now?
taking me back, so
I'm not watching this as we speak, but like one of my comfort shows right now is I'm watching Captain Caveman. Do you remember Captain Caveman?
m my 6th grade no, my 1st grade lunchbox, Captain Caveman, which was replaced by Hong Kong Phooey.
Nice.
So,
There's like zero explanation for they say it in the introduction of the show. They're like, the teen angels thaw him out from his glacial prison while exploring a cave or something like that. That's the only explanation for why they're together. And I feel like his powers are whatever they need. Now I hear myself too. I hear the echo myself. It's the like this whatever they need the episode to have. Like, there's an episode where he like drinks a lake. There's a guy getting away
yeah.
on a boat, so he drinks the lake. I'm like, okay, sure, it's a cartoon, right?
Hey, if we could get through, like, Superman and Clark Kent with just a pair of glasses, or Lucy always tricking Ricky with the outfit, we could get it.
Yeah,
We
there
could
you go.
appreciate it.
There you go. Hey, by the
So,
way, thank you so much for having me on. This is I
I
really
was about to
appreciate the
say, once
invite.
again, welcome. I I have this list, and if you saw it on YouTube, I put it on my community page. I had this list of people that I wanted to have conversations with when I first came up with this concept, and I would say about 15 people, you're number 15. So the red
Nice.
line has been through. I'm having this conversation. What we normally like to do is we like to start with an icebreaker question and then get into the movie stuff. Since it took 2 years plus, you might have more than one.
Okay.
But I looked through interviews, I've looked through podcasts you've done. No one has ever asked you this. What is your favorite cereal that you would go to at midnight?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I believe. Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
What about when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, we didn't have fun cereals. We only had really healthy stuff in the house. So it would have been Cheerios, and not like Honey Nut Cheerios, just straight nasty Cheerios. Or maybe like a Raisin Bran or something like that. So well, you know what? I say that I do remember getting a box of Mr. T cereal when I was a
Yes,
kid, but
yes.
I also remember I threw up because I ate so much of it I got myself sick. So
if I went shopping with my dad, he knew that, I would like help him unpack the car and all that stuff, push the cart, all the things he didn't want to do. And I would always be able to get a box of cereal. So my thing was, I want to try that new Cookie Crisp cereal. So I put a box in and I got home and I didn't want to sit with a bowl of milk. So I said, let me just try one. It didn't end up being one. I ate almost the whole box.
Did you get sick?
And I found out what the audio was. I had YouTube and it just started playing our conversation. So
Yep,
YouTube is closed, strictly StreamYard. So we're good. I'm good. I could relax now. My pits are not sweaty. So
Yeah.
we are not alone.
Really, that's no way to do an interview either.
No.
Because I've done it. Yeah.
One thing I didn't tell you backstage, and I know I could rely on you for this, I tell people all the time, I didn't call it the interview. I call it conversation. Mm-hmm. So that means if you think of something, we go back and forth. I have a list of questions, but if I don't get to it, but in the midst of it, we have a good conversation, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So as I was saying, we are not alone. So I want to do a quick check-in of who's here. Just say a quick hello. Thank you for everyone who's in the chat, everyone who's lurking. I appreciate you too. Watching on the replay, please. I got to do this part here. Something about the algorithm. They like this. So please go ahead and do the whole like, subscribe, comment, blah, 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 blah. There it is. You know what to do. If you haven't done it already, subscribe. If you know someone who said they like my channel, but they're not subscribed, tell them to subscribe. If you've been here before, welcome back. If it's your first time here, welcome. Now, with that all out the way, let's see who's here. So we got Steve here. What's up, my friend? We got Martinez Joe. What is going on? He's another one. Him and Marie were on the list, so I'm glad I got a chance to have a conversation with them way back when. Ooh, been over a year now. We got to catch up and do it again, my friend. We got Mama Blu-ray in the house. I'm doing well, minus a half-flooding basement, but that's another conversation for another day. We got Corey in the house and Wilkie's Movies and Music. I always got to pause when I say that, but hello, happy to see you. Soon to see you in person. Looking forward to that. We got Jeff K saying good evening. People saying hi to each other. We got Adrian James in the house. What is up? Joe says, Heath has been on a channel I've continuously watched for many years. Me too, since I love his collecting style and not a format snob like me. I think he appreciates movies and TV shows. How he gets it, I think, is less of a concern, if I could speak for you. Yeah. And yes, respectful of his vast knowledge of film. We'll get into that tonight. So I'm totally with you, Joe. Jane Doe saying, hope you're having a great evening. It's a lot better now. I just mentioned the man backstage. There he is. What's up, Garrett? Love to see the content on your channel lately. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Is he wearing the headband right now? Are you?
He's kind of moved away from the headband. He's doing the rebranding. He's not saying it, but I could tell. Yeah, Mama Blu-ray picked up on my voice is cranky. For good reason, Mama. For good reason. Thank you for everyone letting me know that I'm sounding good. All that stuff. We got Prince in the house. Good morning to you, sir. Loves putting the government a name out there. I know, it's respect. I get it. Radish Sheep, I acknowledge you. Thank you, sir. We got James from 20th and 21st. What is going up? Happy July. Half the year is over, my lord. Have Cheetah Will View saying, hey, yeah. What is up to you, sir? Everyone joining in. Dave Andrew Howard just had a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch himself. Can concur.
Dave in the Cave joining us in the chat. What's up, Dave?
I like the way that sounds. Dave in the Cave. I like that.
He's a radio DJ.
Ooh, I could respect that. I always said I didn't have a face for radio, but I used to do it. College radio was the best. That's all I'll say. You could have a lot of fun on college radio. Yeah. We got my little sis in here. What's up, Killa? Same to you. Always good to see you. People saying hi. We got Huck in the house. Everyone checking in. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Media Play J. That sounds like a DJ name itself. Media Play J saying hey. We got Brent Madison saying, great to see Heath in conversation. I agree. And I've seen you before because I remember the Bruce in the background. So good to see you here. Let's see, everyone saying hi. We got Mika in the house saying, hey, happy Monday to you. We got some props to you. Love to see people get their flowers. Heath, you're a good dude. Thanks for all you provide to the collecting community. I concur.
Thank you.
We got Rob in here saying, what up? So thank you.
Rob. Good to see Rob too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, these are my people. My people have showed up. This is
I
exciting.
like that. I like when the people come out. And
Yeah.
there you go. No headband right now. Driving home from work. But he wished he was wearing it. Put it on when you get home, man. Put it on while you're having dinner. You know, keep it going. All right. So we're going to get into some movie talk here. So
and we're out of time. All right. Well,
yeah, I know. You got to go. It's one of the short conversations today. I do like to do individual questions, unique questions for each guest. So I'm not going to ask you, so how many movies do you have? How big is your collection?
I actually couldn't answer that. Honestly, I have no idea.
When did you decide to move the Kino Lorbers from behind your background to somewhere else in the room? But I will say I did my research, and I went back about 6 years ago to a specific video where you were describing what exactly Serial at Midnight is. And at the risk of a few views, can you describe your original intentions for the site and the channel and how it's changed from then to now?
Yeah, though I don't know if I remember. So my goal was always to share my love of pop culture and movies and comics and all the stuff that I cover, right? I wanted it to be just a really fun destination for fun pop culture stuff. And one of the reasons I started the channel, well, it wasn't just a channel. I started as serialatmidnight.com thinking that was the main attraction. And I was posting a YouTube video once a week and thinking that would get it, but that didn't get it. But the goal was like having conversations about things that were joyful and like positive. And if I like this now, it sounds kind of gross, but having conversations about things that weren't like, so much of our fandom now is defined by, Star Wars fans are always mad, like there's a lot of unrest in the fandom. And so I wanted to have just like general, like gee whiz conversations to the point that I would start every video. What did I say? Be like, hey, I'm Heath and I'm glad you're here or something like that. I was really trying to create this sense of community and like, this is a safe place. Mm-hmm. But it did evolve though, because I did realize at some point that like, I don't even know if I want to go on record with this, but I realized I have a very critical mind about things, and I saw an opportunity to be critical in a way that was not necessarily negative, and to talk about movie history in a way that, like, once I earned some credibility with people, I was like, now we can go talk about like High Noon and why High Noon is really great, and like digging into the past and trying to dust off history stuff. I was a history major in college, trying to dust off history in a way that didn't feel patronizing or that didn't feel dusty and creaky. Mm-hmm. But that's really the answer to your question. Is it started from, I don't remember what I said in the video you're talking about. It'd be interesting to see if my answers changed. What did I say?
You kind of similar. Okay. Like, I mean, you were about a year in at that point, and you were saying that you wanted to be kind of like this place for all the things that you mentioned. And I think it was a very retrospective video. And the thing that I like about it is, if you were to do it today, it would be one of your unscripted rants, which I love because it's always timely and it's always on topic. As I mentioned to you backstage, that's one of your segments that I always look forward to. So because as creatives, we can always just like, I'm going to plan this out and I have this outline. I'm going to write my whole script and, basically I'm going to edit it down to every time I say, and get that out.
Yeah.
And when you go unscripted, it's from the heart. And I think a lot of people, just going back to what you're saying about being a critic and people taking that as being negative. I have that conversation with my wife all the time because she'll see something I say or do as being critical. I'm like, I'm being critical, but I'm not being negative or not intending to be negative. But I want you to comment on that. Like about a year ago, I'll bring it forward a little bit. About a year ago, you did a video on the true cost of 4K. And that's not an unscripted rant, but that's something that you took time and effort and you had screenshots, all that stuff. But I want you to comment on that because I hear the complaints about like why something is real Blu-ray, not 4K. I've been trying to get people who are in the industry just to get a better understanding of what it takes behind the scenes. So first talk about the rants, the passion behind it, and then to just flip it and have something that is kind of organized like that video with a lot of information, and of course it's scripted and so forth. And just like, how do you bring the same kind of passion to both those types of videos?
That's an interesting question. I have in my mind they're the same thing, but I guess they're not the same thing, are they?
Scripted, unscripted, that's the only
Well, because
difference.
they're never really scripted, but I have a like okay, so I saw this is a something I saw Stone Cold Steve Austin say, or he said it at some point. He was like, when I go into a match, my hand, each finger is a high spot that I want to hit in the match, and I know
Mhm.
I got to hit these high spots. And I like obviously I'm not a wrestler, but I'm like, okay, when I fire up the camera, I know I got my points that I want to talk about, and I just have to get from point A to point B to C. And so there's never I will occasionally have bullet points off in the corner or something I want to talk about. So it's never scripted, but I do have like if I'm okay, like the thing you're talking about with the true cost of 4K. So I had put together graphics, right? And I had
Mhm.
laid out an outline for with I had to have numbers for that. I had to really have my ducks in a row for that. But I Stone Cold reference for the win. That's right.
You gotta love the wrestlers.
um I so I but when I go unscripted, I have not thought about it before I fire up the camera.
It's been
That's
on
the
your
thing
mind
is
though. It's something that's been on your mind.
it's something that's weighing on me, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what do I think like, let me get this out. And usually just by talking about it, it's almost therapeutic, right? It's this
Yeah.
like it's what I needed to talk about. I've
Yeah.
got another one I'll give you. I haven't recorded this yet, but the next one's probably going to be maybe about um the divide in fandom, because half of it like we are such a divided fandom right now.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean in terms of like, Star Wars or anything like that, but like half of the people seem to be here for the love of movies. Half the people seem to be here either because they love buying plastic, or it's just that like collecting gene where like I gotta have it all, right? And those are two completely different audiences, but we're under the same
Yeah.
roof. How do we
Yeah.
reconcile those two things, you know?
I don't think you can. I don't
No.
think you can
No.
because I've seen people who are collectors. Like my friend was married to a woman who collected handbags. Nothing against that. But the whole thing is if you buy a $300-400 handbag, I expect you to use it. But I'm not in that realm. That's not my niche to say, if I buy this Birkin bag, I don't want to use it. I want to just have it. There's a lot of people like that with movies. I want the steel book, but then I'll turn around and buy the slip version to watch because I don't want to open up the steel book because it has higher resale value, but you're not going to sell it, but I want it anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give you a minute or so to talk about that later. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I can see it as being the same thing, but I truly love the the passion that you bring. And I think Dave McKay puts it best here. He says salty Heath is the best Heath.
You know
Some
what
other
though? It really rubs people the wrong way. So
That's okay.
I am salty for sure. Here's the thing: is like there's this salty, crunchy exterior, but underneath I'm just like this. I'm just this kid. I'm just like I want to enjoy. We're all
Yeah.
this soft center, right? But there's so much that we have to. I almost feel like we have to protect ourselves because there's so much hatred and just like and you know this too. Anytime you present an opinion, opinions aren't facts. They can't be
Mm-mm.
facts. They're an opinion. And no
People want it to
person's
be though.
uh, like the idea of like that opinion is right. When people say like that's a bad take, well, it's your take.
It's
Whether
fine.
it's you know like, it's just an opinion. And so when people present, like, we present opinions
Mhm.
because this is our platforms, right? We create these platforms to express what we have to say. And then people get mad at you because they don't agree with you. I'm like, well, that's not really how this works.
No.
But
No.
there is this element. I talked about I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a couple of weeks ago. I said something on Twitter. I've come to use Twitter or X, whatever it is, as
Mhm.
a proving ground for like what might get good engagement for a video.
Yeah.
And I said something. I was railing about something, but obviously you probably know. I grew up during the 80s when there was all this IP. We had franchise movies, Back to the Future, the Tim Burton Batman movies. I grew up on that stuff. I love that stuff. But now we're living in an era where that's really most of what we're getting. And there's
Mhm.
not the kind of, we also had Quentin Tarantino and we have Michael Mann and we had Heat and we had,
Yeah.
Manhunter and we had all these other kinds of movies. And now more and more, we're not really getting that. So whenever
Mhm.
I see something that feels very patronizing to me, that was done by someone who has no experience with the property that they're bringing to the screen, I will often say, like, more of this. Why don't we
Yeah.
have? And somebody got really upset. They were like, "You're always negative. You're always taking a dump on stuff." And I'm like, I don't
But you
think
keep
that's true.
watching.
I think that I love things, and I'm saying I want more of this. So it's just an
Right.
interesting place. And to tie it back to the kinds of videos that we were talking about, those unscripteds are kind of my way of just saying whatever I want to say. And if you got a problem with it, well, you knew coming in what it was going to be.
Yeah.
So
And you keep coming back for it, so
yeah, you don't have to watch it if you don't like it.
there must be a reason. I also think that, especially when you think about social media, whether it's, a YouTube comment or Instagram comment or the Twitter fingers or whatever it is, people feel safe. There was a little underground movement where people would, they would hire a computer geek who could track IPs. And if they would say, like a boxer, famously, a boxer did this, somebody was talking crap about him and saying that they could take him out. So he got his computer nerd friend to basically track him down. I'm not recommending this. I'm not condoning this, but basically went to dude's house and says, "Come on."
No,
And the guy was shook. He was shook because here it is, this guy who, you know, can knock somebody out and get paid for it
yeah.
at his front door saying, "Come on, my turn after you're done, but come on."
Consequences for his act. Yeah, some immediate consequences.
Yeah, there's no consequences when you make a heated comment to somebody or you say something negative or hateful or whatever. I laugh. I laugh. I laugh it off because it's like, you know what? That's your opinion and you're entitled to that opinion. And I know there's people who get mad and they get upset and all that. I can't do that. I got bigger problems. I got a leak in the egress window. I have real life problems. Your opinion of me or what I say does not register. It does not. I, you know, I saw a thing the other day that said, I'd rather eat a bowl of water with a fork than really take the time to care what your opinion is. I have an opinion too. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whether you agree, disagree, it's all the same passion
Well,
to
and
me.
here's the question: when did we get so sensitive that we couldn't handle each other's opinions? Because that's not how I was raised.
It's different generations, dude.
Yeah.
I think people are a little more sensitive as time goes on. I think it is. We have the Gen X. I had a couple of roundtables with Gen Xers, and I started thinking about all the things that they say about us. Latchkey kids. Nobody cared about us. Your mother sent you outside in the morning. You came home when the street lights came on. All that stuff is true for a lot of people. And it wasn't that they didn't care. It was just how they thought to raise us. And the problem with that other people see is the things that we revere in. It's like, I had freedom. My biggest thing was getting a bike and being able to leave the block because I grew up in New York and, city and urban and all that stuff. But when I could ride the bike and my mother didn't know where I was because I didn't have a cell phone,
Yeah.
it wasn't invented yet. So I think it's just different generations because you speak to anyone within our age range and they feel the same way, more or less.
Hmm.
let me catch up on some quick comments. We got Tony P in the house. What's going? He says hello to you. Brian S says hey to me, and Cinnamon Toast Crunch at midnight. He likes that. The monkey is here. Oh, what a treat this is. An intro for the man who, after my bad past, got me back into eating cereal. Look at that. You're changing the game without even knowing it. Every new video I saw of his woke up my love for this breakfast light. And the funny thing is, you never post anything about cereal. General Mills and the milk. Thank you. Okay, the monkey is in the house. Mika says, I definitely agree with going unscripted. Have to be yourself. I love it. I think besides the passion, it's also honesty. And it, like I said, it's always on time too. Love bullet points, keeps us on track. Yeah, it helps. Jeff is in the house. What's up? Love seeing Heath on here. Love having him here, man. For real.
Love being here.
You have to stand by your opinion. Very true. We aren't going to please everybody. It's not the intention. It's not. And as a movie critic, you know this. People come to you for your opinion. I remember for a while, both you and Jeff over at Films at Home had people accusing you of like being like shills for the companies or like trying to keep your free movies coming in. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Maybe with Disney, but everybody else, it doesn't work.
Disney,
like
who's
that.
never given me the time of day either. That's the thing is Disney.
They sent me Jungle Cruise once on Blu-ray. And I was like,
hey, that's yeah. No, I've been too critical of Disney to get anything, and that's interesting though. The idea of like, but it still comes up too. The idea of like, well, you get all this free stuff, so you're not going to be honest about it. I'm like, have you watched anything that I've said? Because I'm pretty honest about it.
Yeah, I've heard you crap on a Kino. I heard you crap on an Umbrella. But the whole thing is they're trusting the honesty of your opinion.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes those companies behind the scenes are like, yep, like they know.
You're right.
They know.
You're right. You got to be able to just laugh it off like a cackling hen. Yeah, very true. But, you know, people take it too seriously and there's nowhere to go from there. Once again, thank you everyone in the chat. Keep it coming. If you have questions for Heath, chime in. We'll try to get to it, but we're very verbose and we like the sound of our voices. So we're just going to continue on.
That's right.
Yeah. I mentioned being a critic, but also someone mentioned before you have vast knowledge of film. I respect that. So being what I consider a film historian, have you studied or patterned yourself after anyone? Like I know watching Siskel and Ebert got me involved in movies from a young age, you know, talking about a rated R film before I could see it. You mentioned Tarantino, some of his early stuff I learned from watching them. So is there anyone in particular that you said, yeah, I want to be like them, or I could see like their perspectives? Like I used to line up a lot with Ebert where I would see a movie and then I'd go to see what he thought, you know, in the newspaper or something like that. And do you have anyone that you studied or patterned yourself after?
I really don't. To be perfectly honest with you, there may be some hidden influences that I don't realize, but I'm a pretty anti-authority, like oppositional defiance disorder kind of guy. And I could say, like, I told my dad something the other day. He was like, oh yeah, he's like, even when you were a newborn, you were just like really against, you know, like just the idea of the establishment, whatever it is. Like I'm always like, it's that Marlon Brando movie. Is it The Wild One where someone says like, what is he say? Like, what are you rebelling against? And he said, what do you got? Like, that's kind of how I was raised in a really strict fundamentalist church home, and I rebelled pretty hard. That implies that I did crazy stuff. I just don't.
No, I get it.
I don't like institutions. I don't like establishments. I usually don't like the people that have the spotlight, because I'm like, you don't deserve that spotlight. You don't have anything to say. I'm very aware of, and I realize this sounds crazy because it is kind of crazy, but I'm just very aware of the corporate machine. And the older I get, the more I see like, well, we've done nothing to change the corporate machine. Okay, so Siskel and Ebert, right? Let's talk about them. So these guys in the Chicago area, correct? Like they watch movies, they get thrown together because they have these conflicting opinions. That show gets picked up because people like to watch them argue. They
Yeah.
the producers of that show, the network
They
knows.
hated when they agreed.
Yeah, the network knows, like, well, these guys are from two different worlds and they bicker like children. And then, like, people are like, ooh, it's the same thing
Mhm.
we do now with shows like The Bachelor or whatever. I mean, we love that. We love the drama, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I can't really think of any North Stars in that aspect. I did watch when Tarantino came onto the scene in the early DVD era. I would listen to his commentaries when he
Same.
would do them and take notes on them and talk, because he talk about like film stocks, and he talk about different like shutter speeds, things like this. And I would listen to Robert Rodriguez would do really informative commentaries, do
Yeah.
the 5-minute film schools and stuff, or
Yeah,
the
oh my
10.
gosh. The
Yeah,
one on, El Mariachi and Desperado. It's like, this dude is like telling all his secrets, but I
yeah.
love it.
He tells you
Give
how
me
to make
more.
fake blood. He gives you the recipe for his fake blood.
It's crazy. And
Yeah.
this is what people are talking about. We don't get that on Blu-rays and 4Ks anymore.
No.
Besides the super dope menus that we used to get on DVDs, we don't get those kind of features anymore. We might get a vintage behind the scenes yawn. You might get one commentary. Bringing Out the Dead, we were just talking about that before. I think that is going to be the release that really stamps Paramount Presents as being a boutique offshoot. I can't call them a label, but just to do that kind of special features. And it's not to say it's anything groundbreaking. It's kind of like what we're used to from the DVD days, but we're not getting that quality of stuff
No.
unless we get a big box from a Second Sight or Arrow or someone like that. But I think that's the one that's going to put them in a game. And I'm a big Scorsese fan, so I'm looking forward to it regardless.
Do you know that on The Force Awakens, when they were making Star Wars The Force Awakens, a door fell on Harrison Ford's leg and broke his leg, and they had to
I
shut down
remember him being
production.
injured.
They
Yeah,
shut down production. J.J. Abrams rewrote the screenplay because before that he had Ray and Finn as like a couple kind of a thing.
yeah,
And and that we'll never get that story on an
no.
official commentary. That's so we don't get the truth anymore. I should mention, I always talk about the truth, and that's kind of the answer to your question earlier. Is I really don't have a North Star for influences, but I always seek the truth. I'm trying to find, like, well, what's the core of this thing?
Hmm.
But then I was talking to a director about a month ago, John Spira, who's doing a new Christopher Lee documentary, and he said he's done a lot of documentaries, and he said there is no truth. It's everyone's perspective, and people share their perspective. It's their truth, but there's no universal truth. The best you can hope to do is find the different perspectives, and maybe they line up sometimes. And let's try to remember that going forward. Just try to tell the best. Try to find whatever it is that is reflective of what that person or whoever, if I'm doing a commentary for a movie, well, what are some of the stories from the people that were involved in it if they're not here anymore? Just trying to find some kernel of relevancy, something that feels honest, and that's harder to do now than ever before.
Yeah. I mean, even you mentioned documentaries, a lot of people take them as fact, but if you go back to like Nanook of the North, even that was pieced together to appeal to the director's viewpoint. So even documentaries are kind of forged together. It's factual, but it's still, it's a nonfiction film. It's not necessarily, something that is like, as it happens, this is being recorded.
Yeah.
We got Caveman in house saying, welcome to the family, Heath, the conversation family. Please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you. Thank you. He mentioned this 33 watch and only 21 likes. Thank you. And thank you in advance. Heath is my movie hero. James asks, what upcoming theater releases are you excited about, or upcoming physical releases? Because there are some people that don't go to the cinema anymore.
What's coming up now? Hold on, I got to go to the AMC app and pull up what's coming up, because I honestly, do you have that when somebody asks you a direct question like
Yeah,
that, your brain
yeah.
empties?
I still
Like,
remember one time someone said, give me a top 5 Val Kilmer. I'm like, why do you care? And I mentioned 5 and they said, so Tombstone's not there? I was like, come on, it's off
yeah,
the top of the dome, dude. I hate those questions. Just for further purposes, if you have me on your channel, don't ask me top 5 anything. I'm just going to give you like Dylon, 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 Dylon.
I get deer in the headlights. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
easily.
I am looking at the coming attractions from on my AMC app. I am cautiously optimistic about Beetlejuice.
Mhm.
I didn't want it. I don't think we need it. Beetlejuice is a
Mm-mm.
complete, perfect little film that
I agree.
does not need to be messed with, especially not decades later. But it looks like it could be fun, so we'll see. Joker, Folie à Deux, however we say it. I didn't like Joker, the first Joker. Joker is a
Yeah.
satire. I don't think people like Joker is made by a man who's very upset that he can't make comedies anymore. Um, Having said that, Joker 2 looks very good. It looks very good. Because I
Mhm.
I need something that, with all these DC movies that are coming out, we had the Snyderverse and now we've got the James Gunn thing. This is something
Mhm.
different. This is doing its own thing. And it's a movie made for adults, which I actually like that's another good thing.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Wicked, I think Wicked looks pretty good.
Yeah, I gotta take my wife to see that. That's one of her favorite musicals. I took her for our anniversary, I wanna say 15th. I took her to another state, and then I surprised her with tickets to go see that. And they had the thing where if you go early, you could get, like, ticket upgrades. You could win a chance to get ticket upgrades, and we won. So we got to sit, like, orchestra, second row. It's like you could see them spitting and everything. It was great.
I just mentioned, I just remembered Trap, that movie Trap, the new Shyamalan movie, actually looks
Mhm.
really good to me. I like the idea of that. And what's the movie with Mark Wahlberg where he's the pilot? I can't remember the name of it. Do you know what I'm talking
"Hey,
about?
how you doing? How's your mother?" I don't know. I just remember the tagline is, "Y'all need a pilot?" What a weird
Yeah.
to actually put that on the distribution poster. Y'all need a pilot?
We
You
have
gotta
a
say it in his
marketing
voice.
problem. Movies have a marketing problem.
Maxine for me, personally, long legs. I'm really looking forward to that because I hate jump scares. I think if you rely on them, you're lazy. And that movie, at least the trail from the trailer, didn't have any jump scares, but it seems downright creepy. And I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
We got another question for you. What kind of music did you grow up on?
Um Oldies, really. I mean, it was like 50s and 60s music.
Mhm.
Partly
Same.
because that's what I was allowed to listen to because it was
Mm,
not,
innocent music
yeah, innocent music, which and it's
that we
crazy because
listened
it's
to
not
while we
really.
were necking in the backseat of a car.
Yeah. Well, so much of it's about drugs and about all kinds of other stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's 50s and 60s music mostly.
I was lucky. I was telling Heath before that, I used to DJ and all that, and my father grew up in the Caribbean, so they had their music, then they got here, and he tried to find different kinds of music, so we had everything from Burt Bacharach and Engelbert Humperdinck to Jefferson Airplane to, those blue records by Red Fox and Richard Pryor that he would try to hide from me. I
You
found
gotta wash your you know what. Yeah.
Would you please? I can't wait for the Linguini incident release and Heath's moderated conversation with Rosanna Arquette.
Yeah.
What's
That
that
was
about?
that was an interesting experience. I will tell you, wristwatch Scott, I'm barely on it, but I was there for the whole thing. I recorded it. I'm barely on it. Richard Shepard really they had not so that group is the cast and then the director, and they had not been together in like since the movie.
Oh, wow.
And they immediately there it was a little when they first started talking to each other, it was a little like feeling each other out and like, well, what have you been up to? And then Richard Shepard just started asking all these questions, and I would jump in whatever I could, like if there was a
Yeah.
lull. They didn't really seem to want to answer my questions. They're like, I said, David Bowie's in the movie. And I'm like, how did you get Bowie? I don't think they were interested in talking about that. So then he was like, oh, well, I always thought we could get Bowie and I just went after him and he said yes. So, but anyway, and so I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not actually in it all that much, but I did moderate it and I edited it and it's my commentary. So I'm really
Hey,
proud of it. I'm glad for people to listen to it.
still something to put on the resume. I like that.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? It doesn't matter. We got Laren in the house. Hello, my friend. Always good to see you. Good evening. Yeah, what movie is a one and done watch for you? 12 Years a Slave for me.
Ooh.
Torture porn. Not my thing.
Oppenheimer.
Really? Too long?
I didn't like it. I think it's
No?
unwatchable. I think Oppenheimer is unwatchable.
How about Amadeus?
Yeah, that's probably well. I've only seen it once, so it was a
Uh-huh.
one time only.
I love Amadeus, and when it got to the point in the movie where it was like Salieri and Wolfgang, I was like, somebody was watching Amadeus when they wrote this movie. And he admitted to it. He was on Kunibi, and he admitted that that was a reference movie for him. So, yeah, I could see it coming through. We got my new friend Frank in here. What's up, buddy? Go check out Frank's Media and Reviews up and coming channel. He just hit 1K. Congrats to you, my friend. And he should be on the conversation soon. He is watching. Oh, making dinner and watching us. Thank you. Telling everybody to hit the like button. Maxine Trap Smile too. Yeah, that actually, I'm not big on sequels these days, but yeah, I want to see how the Ty West trilogy wraps up. And Smile 2, that was a one and done for me, Smile. But I'm interested in Smile 2 just because it's different enough. Long Legs, must watch. Anything Michael Monroe. Yeah, I rewatched It Follows the other day, and I was, the colors in that movie, it sets the mood for sure. Wanted to say fantastic interview with Celluloid Dreams creator. Mentioned your interview in my review earlier today.
Thank you.
Love it. We love it.
Thank
we got
you so
Brother
much.
Dell in the house saying what's up. We got Steve in the house saying hey, hey. Thank you, everyone. Keep the chat going. All right. Where do I want to go? Ooh, I want to play a little game. Because normally what I do is I give you enough time for people to do this thing I call 5 before the 5. But I had too many questions. I couldn't do 5 before the 5 with you. So I'm going to do a remix of 5 before the 5. I have my phone here. I'm going to set a 1-minute timer. And I'm going to give you a topic. And you could talk on that topic until the timer goes off for 1 minute. And then we'll go into the next topic. And as you can imagine by the banner, there'll be about 5 of them.
All right.
All right. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to start it when you start your answer. So, first one, being a music fan, best remastered album you ever heard?
Okay, well, I'm going to start talking so you can start the timer, but I'm not sure. It's the problem that so many remasters have is they just raise the volume on them, and you get that loudness thing. And I've bought so many remasters the last 5 years where it's just like blowing out the speakers because it can't handle the bass that it's trying to push through it. Oh my Lord, this should not be this hard to do, but I'm still talking. I think the Doors remasters are really good. I think that I just bought a box set of the Rascals, which was this great 60s band into the early 70s, Good Lovin'. It's a Beautiful Morning. And that's a good remaster as well. But best?
I know. It's so hyperbole.
And I'll think of something after we finish talking, and I'll be like, it was this.
It'll be while you're on the toilet or something.
Yeah, but I'll keep naming remasters though.
Yeah.
There was a box set of Jerry Lee Lewis on Sun Records. That was a great remaster.
And you're out of time.
Okay.
I know. I was like, how am I going to start this? Let me make him think, and then the rest of them are going to be easy peasy.
Oh, okay, good.
All right. For me, I like when they introduce, like, when you have an album and it's like you could hear a hint of something, but you're like, ooh, I need a little more. Okay. Christmas in July. Andy Williams, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. I always say, just listen to the drums. But if you buy the mono version, you hardly hear the drums. Since it's been remastered in stereo, they give the drummer something like he was in James Brown's band. I love that.
Okay, you just jogged my memory on something, and I have to talk about this. So just pretend that this is part of the 1 minute. So I got to interview. I've interviewed him twice now. The Peanuts, Lee Mendelssohn's sons from the Charlie Brown Christmas special. All the Charlie Brown specials. They were looking for some audio tracks in the vaults. All the music tapes were kept off site. and they were looking for these music tracks for one of the specials so they could release the soundtrack. And they came in, and it was a box of like 12 soundtracks with all the takes from Vince Guaraldi and his various three-piece bands or whatever.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
put out what was the first one they did? They did the oh my lord, what did they did the
Great
Thanksgiving
pumpkin.
last year, the
Uh-huh.
Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special, and then they did this year. They did it was a short summer Charlie Brown, which I've got. I'm reposting my interview
They
later this
did the
week. That comes
Christmas
out on
one too.
yes, they did. And they have taken like the drums, all the
Yeah,
it's piano on the thing. Like you watch the special, it's just like
yeah.
piano. But then you listen to the tracks as they've been
There's so
restored,
many
and like
more
the
instruments.
bass, man, they had this like San Francisco bass sound, the
I
bass
love it.
sound, just
I love it.
like
See,
they had
we
all these
can geek
funk
out about
guys.
music too. I love it. I love
Yes,
it.
all these
All
funk
right.
guys were on that those recordings, and you never heard them, but now you can hear them.
All right. Second one. This is gonna be easy. How was your trip to California? Because I was supposed to do that trip last year, but how was your trip?
Amazing. I love it out there. I want to live out there. It's very expensive. I
Mm-hmm.
can't live out there. I have family here anyway. I got to take care of my family, but not like I'm going to leave my family, but like my parents are getting older and I need to be close to them. But I love California. There's so much movie history, movie culture out there, music culture, Amoeba Records. My lord,
Amoeba.
it's as good as they say it is.
Did you go to LA or San Francisco or both?
I just did LA.
Oh,
I
now
just
see
did
how
LA. But what I love about California is that there's the different topographies, and you've got desert, and you've got beach, and you've got mountains, and they're all right there, you know?
Yeah. I was
Um,
supposed to go and like hit up Nancy's house from Nightmare and go
yep.
to Glendale where they did Halloween and all that stuff and do some touristy stuff, but also like some really geeky stuff and have a meetup at Amoeba. I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna do it. My college roommate is in Berkeley, so I was gonna go up to San Francisco, do the Hitchcock walking tour. I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's just
Do
a
it.
matter of when.
Do it.
Okay, we kind of dipped into this before, but now you have a whole minute to just bitch about it. Watching versus collecting.
All right.
Give
Well,
us a
we do.
preview of the video.
Listen, we're all collectors. If you're a movie fan, you're also a collector because you want to have your movies. Exactly right. But there in the last, I don't know, it didn't used to be this way 5 years ago. You think 5 or less, right? I think it
Hmm.
was really around COVID or maybe a little bit before. But there was this influx of people who were only talking about like slipcovers and the value of things. And I started noticing these comments. I talk about like I would go to these thrift store videos, and I'd find stuff that I was excited about just to enjoy. And people would be
Yeah,
like, "How much is that worth?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's worth
cheers.
whatever." And here's the real thing is that it's only worth what you can get somebody to pay for it. I'm selling off pieces of my collection, and I will be for years because I have way more than I need. And it's not worth what people think it's worth. Like if something is supposed to be worth $100, if you get 20 for it, you're probably doing pretty good.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Like I love movies, and I just like the disc is a delivery system. Of course, I want it to look good. I like
Yeah,
nice packaging, but that's incidental. That's like a benefit of the thing.
I think I told someone, with the exception of Red State, I have almost all of Kevin Smith's movies, and they got excited. Why? You got Dogma on Blu-ray? I'm like, I don't know. I think it's DVD.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you had like something expensive in your collection.
Yeah.
I was like, but it's staying in my collection. I don't know the difference between the price of this and the value of that. I don't know. I just know that they're on my shelf. I could grab them and watch them whenever I want.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm like, where do these people come from, and how have they become louder than the voices that were always here to begin with?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Two more, and then we'll hit the 5.
All right.
This one might take you a while, so I will not hit start until you start to talk.
Okay.
Best review you ever wrote. And everyone in the comments, I'll get to you, but this is too much fun to interrupt.
I don't know if it's my best. I like my review of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad because
The second one? Yeah.
I was able to hone in on and it's a negative review, but I wrote it in a way that did not anger people. Nobody was pissed off about it. And even people that didn't agree with me were like, I really enjoyed the Suicide Squad, but you made some good points. And I'm like,
That's
that's
all you
enough.
want to do.
Good
That's
enough.
all
Yeah.
you want to do.
Now I'm trying to think if there's got to be others. I'll tell you, but the one that surprised me the most is I reviewed Morbius, that strange little
Yeah.
vampire movie with Jared Leto, and it's not a good movie, but
No.
it was fine. Like I was entertained by it, and that review blew up. It's still the thing has gotten the most traction of anything I've done.
Look at that. You didn't even take the full minute.
Yeah, I can keep talking if you want.
I came out of that, and there you go. The thing that I liked, and the thing I came away saying is, why isn't it Matt Smith in more things? Like, he should be like blowing up. Like, to me, that was the only good part to that movie was his portrayal. Hey, girl. And then next thing you know, he's on House of Dragon. So now he's Damon, and everybody loves him, and he's the best part of the show. But when I saw Morbius, for one, I saw it on April 1st. I was like, oh, so I'm the fool. Okay. Okay. But yeah, he was the only thing that I cared about in the movie. So, all right. Children of the 70s, don't come for me. I'm strictly asking a question of opinion. Star Wars, pure sci-fi or space opera?
Space opera. You don't need a minute for that. It's space opera. It was conceived as space opera. It's an homage to Flash Gordon.
How many people? That is science fiction. I don't even put it as science fiction.
It's not science. There's nothing science fiction about it. It's space opera.
It's action adventure. It is not a sci-fi movie.
No.
Bordering on fantasy, but you watch Hidden Fortress, you watch old episodes of Flash Gordon, you see Star Wars. That's what it is. It is episodic, like a space opera episodic thing put together in episodes, and which he ended up calling,
Yeah, and George Lucas has even said that. And he's even said there's no connection between like Star Trek and Star Wars because Star Wars is a space opera. And he always goes, I wanted to pay tribute to the stuff that I grew up on, the old serials and Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. And he tells us exactly what it is. It's not science fiction. It's a space opera.
Yeah. But there's people that think it's sci-fi. I was like, whatever helps you sleep at night.
What happened? Okay, yeah. And I don't want to, we don't need gatekeepers, but we do have people in this space that don't understand the definition of a thing. Science fiction is going to be about ideals. It's going to be a reflection. It's going to use metaphor to tell us more about ourselves. And that's not what Star Wars is doing. Star Wars is dealing with epic mythic storytelling with all the tropes of like Joseph Campbell's hero, the hero with a thousand faces. The hero's journey. And then also, that's why even the prequel stuff doesn't feel like pure Star Wars, because he's outside of what he was doing to begin with.
Maybe that's what it is. Those are more science fiction. Yeah. But the Holy Trilogy is what we grew up with. That's a space opera.
It's a mix science fiction. Like, it's taking tropes of various styles and putting them in a blender and presenting them as this. It's almost like a tribute, It's
homage.
Yeah.
It truly is. Thank you for playing along.
Hey, thank you. That was not as painful as I was expecting.
No. I didn't want to make it painful. Let me go back and see some of these comments here. Great conversation. Thank you. Heath, enjoy your critical analysis of movies. How do you go about doing your research for audio commentaries? Something you ventured into lately.
Primary sources. Wikipedia is not a resource for commentary. You seek out magazine interviews and newspaper articles, and you read critical analysis of movies from that contemporary time. So if somebody wrote a review about a movie in 1950, you go read the review. If you can read autobiographies by the people who made the movie, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I will never forget that I was listening to an audio commentary by somebody who does a lot of audio commentaries, and I caught them reading IMDb trivia verbatim. They didn't even change the wording, and I'm not going to say who it was, but
do they go by three names?
What?
do they go by 3 names?
No.
Like, okay,
No.
that's the first one I thought of. Dell wants to know your favorite movie soundtrack, and then name your favorite child after that, because that's how I
Yeah.
see it. But he's hit me with this question before too.
Favorites are hard, right? Because it's just whatever mood you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The first thing that came to mind when I saw that question was the Last of the Mohicans soundtrack.
Really?
And I don't know if I can stick to that answer, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. So maybe I should just go with
I
it.
got to go check that out now.
Oh, beautiful score.
Yeah. Who does it?
Huge orchestra, emotional, really like
Is
moving
it
emotional
Shore?
themes.
Is it, which composer did it? If you know.
Oh, let's see. Now I don't remember. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
All right. Frank says first soundtrack that comes to his mind is Boogie Nights. So he likes the needle drops, banger
Oh
after
yeah.
banger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hookstergram says, "Good day, mates. Hello, hello. I'm glad you like
Trevor
LA
Jones and
Heat."
Randy Edelman. I'm sorry. Trevor
Oh,
Jones and
okay.
Randy Edelman.
Nice. Huck says, "Glad you like LA." He's out there. So much enjoy here. So true. So true. Did Wolf Creek change the way you see Australia? Also coming to the US finally for a release, so we
That's
don't
true.
have to overpay for the was that Vivision who had the release before that everybody was going crazy about?
I think that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was either them or Umbrella. I'm not sure. Wolf Creek did not change the way I see Australia. I always thought Australia was crazy. You know what?
All right.
So in the 1980s, KB, do you remember like on HBO? And we didn't have HBO because
Mm-hmm.
sin. But when we would get free previews or whatever, that movie. What was the movie called? Fortress. The movie's called Fortress with what is her name? Anyway, it's about this teacher and these terrorists come in. It's an Australian movie.
Yeah.
Rachel, guys, help me. They're gonna know it in the chat. They're gonna know exactly what
Please
I'm
throw it
talking
in the
about.
chat if you know.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the
Um,
wiki.
this teacher is teaching her class in the outback, right? She's teaching her class, and these terrorists come in, and one's got a Santa Claus mask, and one's got like a Daffy Duck mask on, and they take the whole group hostage. And it's crazy. It's a crazy movie. And I think that's my first exposure to Australian cinema, well before I saw Mad Max or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always kind of associated Australian movies with being, very unique. Rachel Griffith, is it Rachel Griffiths? That sounds right. Yeah. I should just look up Fortress right now.
Could be. What's up to Miss Caveman, by the way? Good to see you. I should take this banner down, by the way. We're done with
Rachel Ward.
Rachel Ward.
After
That's
being
a name I haven't
kidnapped
heard in a while.
After being kidnapped for ransom by 4 criminals, a school teacher and her student flee into a cave and build fortifications in anticipation of decisive battle with their captors. Check it out. It's crazy.
If it's on Wiki, it must be true, right?
That was IMDb. That's more reliable. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into the Star Trek, Star Wars thing. Let's see. Definitely a space opera. Still put it with the sci-fi in my collection. Has it all a separate section because I'm crazy like that. Let's see. All right. So, last question before the 5. So every July for the last 13, 14 years, I do this challenge where it's just sci-fi and fantasy. That's all I watch. And it's from, do you remember DVD Talk back in the days? One of their forums, they have challenges every month. And I just started doing that. And it's great because sci-fi, you could watch like a day's worth of Twilight Zone on July 4th, and you can make all those entries because it's TV and movies. So I was looking at it and I was like, how can Heath help me with my selections here? So let me see if I could find it in my umpteen Chrome tabs that I have here. No, not that one. No. If I'm taking too long, I'll just abandon ship.
Are we going to come back to some of these comments? I want to answer Happy Optimist's Doctor Who question.
Where is he? Prince has a lot of questions. Let's see. I saw someone say, oh, here it is. Do you still enjoy Doctor Who, and what are your thoughts on the last series?
That's a different question than the one I was looking at, but the answer is I'm a classic Doctor Who fan, and I have not really been able to successfully transition that fandom into New Who because it's
Mhm.
so drastically different. Now, look, I stuck with it all the way through. I was in 2005 when it rebooted or relaunched with Christopher Eccleston. I would torrent the episodes because nobody was showing them in America yet, so I would torrent them after they went out in the UK. And I did that through Tenet, and I followed Doctor Who through Matt Smith. Matt Smith was the beginning of the end for me because they changed the show so fundamentally to be bigger and dumber and broader and to appeal to a much wider audience, which it did, and they broke into America. Capaldi I liked because he was older, and I thought it was fun to have a grumpier doctor again. But there was an episode where the stories are garbage. I mean, I'm just gonna be you don't I get to leave when this is over. So I'm just gonna say the stories are just terrible. It's some of the worst writing. They make no sense. It's a lot of Deus ex machina resolutions where things just come out of nowhere that you didn't know about, and they like whatever they need, they just pull it out of thin air and like, and it was as wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Don't worry about it. The old series was never like that. The old series was always constructed around really thoughtful scripts. Now, okay, in the latter years, like Sylvester McCoy and stuff, it got pretty bad. But there was an episode where like Sonic sunglasses with Peter Capaldi, and I was like, okay. And then they doubled down on that, and they're like, now I have a Sonic guitar, and I was like, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. So Tom Baker is my favorite doctor. I love classic Doctor Who. There's a Roku channel that shows Doctor Who 24 hours a day. I watch it almost every single day, but I can't, there we go, Adrian. But I can't, I can't really get behind the new stuff because it's just so different.
See, now you're answering Prince's question. That's
Yeah.
your favorite Doctor. Can I tell you something?
Go for
Not
it.
a single episode. I've never watched Doctor. I have a friend who's like fanatic since day one and try to get me into it. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. That day hasn't come yet.
Well, okay, so back in the 70s and the
I just
80s,
don't know where to begin.
well, that's part of the problem. Back in the 70s and the 80s, it was this really obscure thing in America, and you might run across it at midnight on PBS. And that's my first exposure to Doctor Who. Is I remember seeing, I think it was Peter Davison, Peter Davison was the fifth Doctor. I think it was him running down a white corridor, a white hallway, and I was like, "What is this?" And there was this air of like, and because it was British and it was like really cheap special effects because they didn't have like the budget. There was something that felt very underground and mysterious about it.
Yeah.
New Doctor Who is Coca-Cola. I mean, it's just huge. And they have like $26 billion per episode. It's very different.
All right. I found a list.
Okay.
I'm going to go back into it. Thank you for the Doctor Who stuff here. I really appreciate that. So here we go. Yes, this is it. So the beautiful thing about it is they give you these categories for you to match for the challenge. So watch 6 films from different decades. I kind of got that covered. Like today, I need to add it, but today I watched the original Wizard of Oz from like silent film, turn of the century, whatever. But I have some things here, and half of these is just like I've had this 4K way too long for me not to open it. So I'm not going to show you my choices. I'm just going to scroll through. And if any of these strike your fancy to recommend a movie, more obscure the better, because needless to say, the popular stuff is usually covered.
Well, I have a list. Let me pull my list up here because you asked me to pull some stuff. I'm going to hit the first one there. Watch an MST3K Riff Track Cinema Titanic hosted version of a sci-fi fantasy film. I would say don't do that. That's a terrible idea. I would say they have made a reputation by chewing up other people's work. Case in point, a movie on my list, This Island Earth, has been critically ruined by Mystery Science Theater 3000. That's an incredible movie with a lot of really interesting things to say. And anytime I talk about it, people go, "Oh, that's a hilarious movie." I'm like, that movie's not funny at all. That movie is
they try to make it funny.
Yeah. So I worry about the trickle down effects of the whole snark scene from that sort of thing. granting that there was a time and a place for it, but I think that time and place was the 1990s.
I think people are still discovering it. That's the dangerous part.
Yeah.
And if you have any suggestions in the chat, feel free to add them. Like these categories here, I don't have anything for. I mean, I could easily pull a Star Trek.
Hey, what's a film with special effects by Ray Harryhausen? I have The Golden Voyage of Sinbad on my list. Have you seen that film?
Yeah, long time ago, but yeah.
That's a good one.
Let's see.
And that's Tom Baker, too. Tom Baker is in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
There you go. So then it gets into stars. These are easy. Directors. These are easy.
Did I run the chat off? I started ranting about things. I put them to the test with the whole opinions.
You went Doctor Who and they said who? So I just wanted to show this to you just to see if you had any suggestions. Like Vincent Price, I'm finally going to watch Twice Told Tales.
Okay, that's a fun one. That's
Eddie,
the one that's based on Robert Louis Stevenson's stories, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. So the earlier categories is where I thought you would have something interesting to say about like these categories here.
I for sure do. Just give me a second to look at them and think for a second, because I've got that deer in the headlights thing right now. Watching animated film. Now these are going to be science fiction and fantasy films, right? So you could do animated. You could do Fire and Ice. You could do what is the anything Bakshi. Bakshi just lived in that animated fantasy world.
Yeah.
Ralph Bakshi.
I don't know what I thought of Cool World, but
you know what? I got Cool World on my list here too for something that we're going to talk about in a little bit if we get there, because Cool World is super underrated.
I agree. I was waiting on the switch to Dr. Giggles. Oh my gosh. I'll send you this list. That way, if you have any suggestions, you could just send them my way. Because I got all month and I got 4K open. So when I get around
to film that takes place in the future that has already passed. I think maybe Logan's Run. When does Logan's Run take place? I don't remember.
I was thinking that Strange World is another one that took place on New Year's Eve in like 92 or 96, something like that.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get to the 5 takes?
Sure.
Let's go for it. All right. We'll start it the way we always do with number 1. Name the film that made you fall in love with the movies.
So I had loved movies for a while, but I just loved them as entertainment. The movie that I credit as the movie that sort of launched this version of me that you see is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is a surprising movie, and I can't even explain it, really. I just know 1991, that movie hit, and it was everything to me. And I didn't just watch it. I didn't just have the toys. I didn't just read the novelization. I was trying to find out information about the director and about the composer. And that was the movie where I was like, there's a bigger world beyond just watching the movie. You got it right there.
This is my version of that. Watching it at my future wife's house, because I went inside to cool off, and it was just starting on HBO, and I stood for the entire movie. And when they got to the Copa scene, and I realized I watched basically what we would now call a long take, I'm like, the camera never moved. And then I started like looking for things where he was talking, and he would talk about the Archers, and I'm like, who are the Archers? And in a 5-minute interview, he would mention 11 movies and 22 directors. And I'm like, I need to find all these. And of course, started working at a video store. That made it a little easier to find those things. And that started the modern day version of this movie fan here. So
how many of us worked in video stores? Or I worked at video counter at the grocery store, which is kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Movie stores and record stores. And I had both under my belt.
Nice.
All right. So name 5 of your favorite films.
Yeah. All right. So I just picked a sample here. Do I have 1, 2, 3, 4? I'm going to go. Okay. Casablanca is a movie that when I talk about old movies like this, people are like, that's old, man.
Yeah.
They have to come to it. Like, you have to live with it. and you have to see how it has influenced the other movies. So Casablanca for me represents a perfect movie because it's not a noir, but it has elements of film noir, and it's a romance, but it's, well, I don't want to spoil it for people that might not have seen Casablanca because I don't want to take that away from people.
Right.
But I just think that it is an absolutely perfect movie that does everything right. Every take is right. Every line of dialogue is right. And again, people come to it and they go like, well, this is old. Give it time, watch it, and then in a
Mhm.
year or in 2 years, you might
Watch
start
it
thinking a little
again.
bit differently about it.
Yeah. I know for me, I did not enjoy it the first 2 or 3 times I tried to watch it because I kept going in with the notion I would hear women talking about it and fawning over it. I'm like, this is a romance. And every time I kept saying, I don't see the romance in this. I don't see what's so romantic. And then I think it was a film class I took, and it was, or maybe a history class, and they were talking about all the elements behind the movie. And I went in the next time thinking about that. And I was like, oh, it's not a romance, but there's so many different elements of, I don't want to say tropes, but for lack of a better term, like all these different tropes that brings the movie together. And there is a romantic element, but like you said, but then I started appreciating it, and it's somewhere back on the shelf under C. But I enjoy the movie a lot more now that I didn't go in with any type of
Yeah.
predisposition about what the movie was supposed to be. And I think that actually helped me go into movies blind after that more than I have in the past.
Yeah.
Because it's like you see a trailer, you get an idea, and then the movie goes on. It's not that thing. So I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. It's funny. Anytime somebody says that, like, this is one of the greatest movies ever made, well, they've ruined it for you, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And you get, I just, it is like, it's a romance, but it's the one that got away, like
Yeah.
it's the longing of it. Something to point out about Casablanca is that at the beginning of the movie, he runs a bar, and he says, I never drink. I don't drink. And then when his ex-lover enters the picture, he does nothing but drink for the rest of
Drink.
the movie.
She brought it out in him.
Yeah.
She brought out the truth in him. What's next?
Uh, that Thing You Do. I got to see this in theater because it's music. It's the kind of period, being
Yeah.
the kid that grew up on oldies music. That Thing You Do, it took the oldies music that I loved, but it made it feel fresh and young and new, and it kind of brought that scene to life. To this
Mhm.
day, Tom Hanks says it's his favorite thing that he ever did. I saw it in a theater when it was brand new, and it was just, I knew, I was like, this is something special for me.
Yeah.
And when I worked at the video counter, I got to bring the poster home when they were done with it at the store. So I had the poster on the wall. But
Mhm.
I love that movie. And that's got a lot of people in it that would go on to do other things. So it's Liv Tyler, relatively early in her acting career. It's got
Mm.
Ethan Embry is in it. Anyway, we all know That Thing You Do, right?
And another great soundtrack too.
Yes, it
What
does.
else?
And it's got jazz going on too. I like it sort of does different kinds of music on the soundtrack because it's got that like folk thing, and then it's got the rock music, but it's also got, there's a jazz element to it. Um, Danger Diabolic. Have you guys seen Danger Diabolic? So this is a Mario Bava movie from, and I'm not sure the year. It is based on an Italian comic book, and he's basically like a professional thief slash scoundrel, and it's done after James Bond. So there's all of this like elaborate Bondian, like he's got this lair, and
Yeah.
like the car goes into the lair, and it's all like matte paintings and stuff, and it's like this huge expansive thing. He's got like all these cars, and they pull off a robbery, and then it's like him and his lady companion, and they just like they get naked and put the money all over the bed. It's like a rotating bed, so it's super 60s.
Mhm.
But it is a crazy movie, and it's really fun, and it's got this incredible score that's and I think it's Morricone. I think it's an Ennio Morricone score as well. Anyway, Danger Diabolic, Diabolik.
You're right.
Diabolic.
It is Marconi. And it was done produce early De Laurentiis, but he did that at the same time he did Barbarella. So when you start talking about The Money on the Bed, I was like, that sounds like a Barbarella kind of
It
thing.
is. Well, and John Philip Law is in Barbarella, and he's
Yeah.
also in Danger Diabolic. So if you view those two movies as two halves of the same coin, Barbarella is the female side, Danger Diabolic is the male side of the coin.
I just put it on the watch list.
Nice.
I will find it. Is that 3, 4?
That was 3.
Give me another one.
You know what? This is a movie that I used to not I watched it. I thought it was fun, but the longer that goes by, I'm like, I think this is one of my favorite movies. It's Career Opportunities. John Hughes. It's like the John Hughes screenplay that people don't talk about. I guess we have a few John Hughes movies we don't talk about, like
True.
Peggy Sue, right? Curly Sue. What's right? Curly Sue. By it's like
Marie. If Martinez Joe's still in track, she loves that movie.
Yeah, because it's great. It starts off as like a fantasy, right? Like the idea of being stuck in a Target store with this beautiful girl from high school who didn't know you existed before this incident. But it just does, like, it doesn't necessarily do what you think it's going to do. And then there's the Target store is going to get robbed by a couple of bumbling crooks. It's just this really, it doesn't have it's got this hard to pin down tone that I really like. It's funny, it's a comedy, but it's also sweet, and it's got great music, another good soundtrack.
Yep.
Anyway, if people haven't seen that one, I highly recommend that one. Now, I want to go with a different one than what I've got on my list, but I got to think here what some of my favorite movies are. Because I could go in so many different directions. You know what movie I love that I feel like has The Rocketeer set up a lot of what we're living right now.
Yeah.
With the
I don't know if people talk about that movie anymore.
The movie had a profound impact on me when it came out. And I rewatched it a couple of years ago, and I was like, this holds up really well. And the more that you know about it, the more you know about Hollywood, about classic Hollywood, you're like, oh, this is, Timothy Dalton is the bad guy in that movie, and he's a famous actor, and he's a Nazi sympathizer. Now I'm like, oh, Errol Flynn, he's standing in for Errol Flynn, who was suspected to be a Nazi sympathizer. There's a climactic scene at the Griffith Observatory, which is just pure LA movie history.
Yep.
If it was a Huck, was Huck from LA. It loves Hollywood. It loves that old movie style, but it also has that pulp sensibility that informs so much of what we love, but doesn't really exist anymore. I think, Captain America. So that was Rocketeer was why can't I have his name on the tip of my tongue? The director of The Rocketeer is also the director of Captain America, the first Captain America movie.
The Winter Soldier one?
No, before that. The first Winter Soldier was
from the 80s?
What is it?
The one from the 80s?
No.
Joe Johnston.
Why could he designed Boba Fett too? Hold on, Captain America. The First Avenger, 2011. That was the first Avenger. Before.
You missed that. I think I went to Soldier because that's like one of my favorites of the MCU, but we're not getting the MCU talk.
But once upon a time, all of our entertainment had this pulpy underground feeling to it. Back to the Future had it. All these guys that grew up in the 50s and were making movies in the 80s and 90s were making their childhoods. They were bringing their childhoods with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've maybe gotten far from that. So
it goes back to what you were saying before, how we're getting the adaptations and the sequels these days. And it's mainly, in my opinion, it's from not having that risk taking that they had. I always talk about the show, the one that they did on Paramount Plus about the making of The Godfather.
The Offer.
The Offer? Yeah, I'm like, The Offer you can't refuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you saw how the producers are and everything, the way Bob was back then, it was like, all right, let's have a golf game. Let's do some blow. Give me your idea. And that's how a lot of movies in the 70s and 80s got made.
Yeah.
But there was some nostalgia to that because, especially we're looking at films from 84 right now, because, you're going back 30, 40, 50 years for anniversaries. And you go back to that weekend where we had, what was it? Gremlins and Ghostbusters come out on the same day. You're talking two classic movies that people still revere today. But that was like a normal weekend for us as kids.
It
So
was.
it was like,
And
what are
those
you going to
weren't
see?
sequels and those weren't franchises at the time. Those were
No.
just new things. Now you can say, okay, well, Ghostbusters had precedent because there was a Bob Hope movie called The Ghost Breakers, and there was a Martin and Lewis movie. Oh yeah, okay. But the Ghostbusters in that form with those four comedians, or three comedians, and Ernie
Ernie
Hudson, because he
Hudson.
was not like an SNL guy
It's
yet,
supposed
or
to be
yet.
Eddie Murphy.
I know, right? Um, like that was new. That was what was happening, man. That was really
Hmm.
fresh. And then all
Without
those,
those ideas and those risk takings, you don't have new franchises. You don't have
no,
risk taking. But then you have franchises that happen these days, and you're like, we don't need that.
yeah,
I don't need In a Violent Nature too. So it's like,
yeah.
just leave it alone. Leave
Why
it
are
the way
they
it
still
is.
making Exorcist movies? Who signed off on this?
Supernatural movies, they make money. So if you could have The Conjuring, you could bring back Exorcist, which I didn't think they needed to do either.
Just
But
call it, do something, make it a little bit different. You can do your possession movie, but don't call it The Exorcist.
yeah, it might be more successful if you don't. All right. Everyone's favorite question. Number 3, name a popular or classic movie that everybody loves, but you don't particularly like.
All right. I'm already self-conscious that I've abandoned the chat. But I'm gonna be
But you might wake them up.
Taxi Driver. I think Taxi Driver is,
Ah.
listen, it's got power. It's certainly a potent story, but the further I get from having the realization, so I heard an interview with Jodie Foster, and she was
Mhm.
talking about none of the adults could look her in the eye on that movie. And I was
Wonder
like,
why.
yeah, right. Like, wonder why? Because she's a child playing a prostitute, and they're like, well, we need you to like put your hand on his crotch, and she's a child. She's like 12 years old or whatever. And the
Mhm.
more I think about that, I'm like, the movie probably shouldn't exist. It's got good things. Like if you remix that movie, if you take all the stuff with Travis Bickle and I mean, all the stuff that Joker copies, just
I was
blatantly
about to say
steals
that's
from.
why I didn't like the Joker either.
Uh, well, when the Joker was conceived, they wanted Scorsese to direct it. Now
Mhm.
that's interesting because it's revisiting something that he's already done, putting
Yeah.
a different spin on it, putting a new coat of paint on it, if you'll pardon the pun. But he didn't direct it. He was like, I don't want to be associated with these, with a comic book movie or whatever. So it ends up being like, the Joker's movie is like part Taxi Driver, part Mean Streets, part King
Or
of
King of
Comedy.
New York.
So, but anyway, so Taxi Driver, I just feel like there's good stuff in there, and it's an interesting story of a man's sort of break with society and reality. But then there's all this other stuff in there that we don't talk about, like
Mhm.
the stuff with the child, with a little girl that they're asking to do things that no one on. So like De Niro couldn't make eye contact with her, Scorsese couldn't make eye contact with him. Like, you probably should have listened to your gut. So that's all I'll say about that.
Uh,
They're
okay,
all
hang
gone
on.
now.
Nah, it's still here. All right, let's flip that. Number 4, name a critically hated movie that you love.
Let me go to my list because I don't remember what I wrote for this. This is why I wrote some of this stuff down ahead of time.
There you go.
Oh, this is the one. Cool World. Cool World was really dismissed when it came out as being a Roger Rabbit knockoff.
Mhm.
Horny Roger Rabbit is, I think, how it was often referred to. But I think that movie
Roger
is,
Rabbit was horny.
yeah.
Look at
I
his
think
wife.
it's got this really interesting thing going on. The idea of taking that concept and making it a little more the Roger Rabbit. That movie wouldn't exist without Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Mm-mm.
But
Hollywood.
it's not as exploitative as I think some other. I shouldn't name them, I suppose. There are other movies that are just blatantly ripping off Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Cool World is doing something different because it's got that Ralph Bakshi spin on it, and
Mhm.
all the stuff with Brad Pitt, and then the idea of, I mean, Kim Basinger's cartoon character, like that character is incredibly sexy, and it's a cartoon. right? And so they're really doing something with the form of it's an experiment in like, it's playing with reality versus fantasy. I just think it's interesting. I think that it
Yeah.
wasn't understood. I think now maybe it is understood. I
Mhm.
mean, we have a Blu-ray now, so it
I
must
think
be,
there's
but
a 4K.
I do we have a 4K?
Maybe. Oh,
I
no.
know.
You know what I'm thinking of? Another movie that it pretty much references heavy metal. There's heavy
Yes.
metal influence in there as well.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Excelsior movie reviews, I'm so sorry. I know I'm rarely in step with the mainstream. I have and but you can tell I thought about it too. It's not a hot take.
Mhm.
I can tell you why Taxi Driver is a problematic movie for me.
Yeah.
Great performance, great screenplay, but stuff in
Yeah.
there that I don't want to watch that movie again.
Yeah. And one day, Dell, you might need to put me on the couch and we need to explore what is it about Scorsese that I love looking at his movies, being a big fan of his. But yes, most of his movies are about broken men just
Yeah.
traversing scummy landscapes. And I think that's why he gets along so well with Paul Schrader, too, because he does a lot of that transcontinental, those movies that make you explore what's in a man. So
But you
I
know
don't know.
what? At the same time, we've seen what Scorsese is capable of with a movie like Hugo, which he
Hmm.
made for his I think he made that for his grandkids, and it teaches a love of cinema. It teaches cinema history, it teaches a love of movies, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful thematically, but it's also beautiful visually in its construction. When I saw that, I was like, "You can do this? Why
Yeah.
are you not doing this all the time? You could be using this talent that you have to teach and to inform and to create beauty." And he does do that sometimes. I love his documentaries,
Hmm.
but and I also think that he feels very trapped by his past successes. Because when you make Goodfellas or Taxi Driver or whatever,
Or
that's what
Casino.
that's what they want you to make forever.
Yeah. And yeah, I look at things like Shine a Light or, like you said, Hugo. And I
His
remember
George
when that
Harrison
came out on
documentary.
Blu-ray. What's that?
His George Harrison documentary is really good too.
Yeah, I still haven't been able to get my hands on that for a decent price. So I'm gonna look again. It's been a minute. But I look at that and I'm like, wow, I used to be an apologist when that Blu-ray came out. I'm telling people you got to see it, and it's not like the Adventures of Tintin because they were kind of like in step with each other at the time. And then I said, you know what? I'm tired of like defending it. And then Arrow said, we're bringing it out on 4K. I was like, ooh, I think I'm going to let other people see it and then let them become the apologists for the movie.
Yeah.
So, and it happened. It's a beautiful 4K too.
Yeah, do you observe I got a question for you.
Yeah,
A movie that is really popular eventually gets taken down a little bit and over time, and a movie that
hmm,
doesn't find an audience gets pulled up over time.
yeah,
Eventually, everything equals out.
it's true
Yeah.
because I remember when we were just talking about Star Wars with Finn and Ray, and I remember when that came out, and I'm like, I've seen this guy before, and then I'm searching, like Blu-ray deals, whatever, and I saw Attack the Block, and I was like, oh, the guy. I saw him in that movie. I love that movie, but no one was talking about it, and it's movies like that that maybe was like a little unknown here in the States, being a UK movie.
Mhm.
And since the Star Wars movies and his fame and other things like Detroit and all that, it's become a little more popular. And
Yeah.
then you have really uber popular, big mega budget movies. And then after a while, people are like, it's not all that. It's a lot of marketing. It's a lot of marketing
It's a
dollars.
lot.
It's $400 million extra marketing.
I think these Ghostbusters movies that have come out in the last few years, when we get far away from them, people are gonna be like, "These are almost identical to the Ghostbusters from the '80s," because there are literal plot points and
Hmm.
scenes in these new ones that they've just copied from the originals. I'm not even I think the new movies were written by artificial intelligence, and I'm not joking. Like, I think they put
Yeah.
in Ghostbusters 1 and 2, like, Zool, Dana, like, I think they put all these things into a machine, and it was like, here's the plot. I think and I think a human being wrote, the
Yeah.
screenwriters wrote the screenplay, but they're too reliant on echoes of things we've already seen.
My fear is that people are going to do that under the timeline and the pressure of hitting, like dates, like due dates and all that. And we're going to see more of that in movies. It's bad enough that we've gotten to a point where animation artists are rushed and they put out less than, perfect movies. And then you have something like the Godzilla movie with like a team of 5, and they put out some of the best CGI we've seen in years with this small team, not like like a 5-minute credit roll of all these artists. And I think as far as writing along those lines, people are just going to say, you know what, chat GPT it, or, something private like Pilot or something like that, Copilot. And that's the kind of stuff we're going to get. And people will go because it's something familiar. Going once again back to your point, I think that's what it is. Familiar sells. My friend wants to go see the new Despicable Me. I'm like, why? It's going to be just more of the same. I have no desire to see those movies. I'll go see Maxine with you, but then I'll probably go see something else after that. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's the thing that keeps me up at night is that, it really is like they're going to keep cranking out stuff that nobody, even the people that make it, don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
And the audience is going to show up anyway. They just go,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But it makes me appreciate a fresh perspective in a movie, even if it's not the best movie, just because it's something new. I mentioned In a Violent Nature before. When I first saw it, I'm like, I get what they're trying to do, but it just seems like Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of walking going on. But then I thought about it, and I hate when I give a movie a low rating and then it stays on my mind. I'm like, okay, so there was something else there to it.
Yeah.
And 4 days later, I just reevaluated the movie. I couldn't go and see it again, but I reevaluated the movie, and I was like, this is, I won't say it's a masterpiece, but it's brilliant as far as the concept of it. You have basically a Jason movie, but in reverse. You've seen it from Jason's perspective.
Yeah.
And the movie totally relies on the fact that you know all the tropes of a horror movie. And it's just playing with you on that. That's brilliant.
Did you ever see The Rise of Leslie Vernon?
Why does that sound familiar?
Because it's all the things that you just said, but it's from about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's basically showing the tropes of a slasher movie from the perspective of the slasher.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is taken in that movie. Also, a movie like Punchline, where you get to see a stand-up comedian, but you get to see it from behind the scenes. It just flips it on, like every comedian is a sad person type of trope, but, it just flips it that way.
The clown was
we
really
did
crying.
78 minutes or 76 minutes? We are currently at 96. So I'm happy that we had this time together,
Yeah.
But I just
what do we have left? What's left on the
we just have one question left. And I want to thank everyone who's still in the chat, still hanging out, still lurking, still watching.
You guys doing okay out there?
Yeah, hope
Are you staying
so.
hydrated?
Please, everybody, post time. Frank Sinatra. So I do want to thank everyone for hanging out and coming and rewatching and all that good stuff. Hit the like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. But we have one more question for Heath here. Now that you've been through the conversation, number 5, who would you like to see me have a conversation with on this channel?
So I thought about this a lot.
Please do.
I want to suggest somebody for you that's not in the collecting community, not in the online film community. We have an opportunity. You see me doing this too. We have an opportunity to go to the places that we don't hear from all the time. So I think you should try to reach out to someone at your local movie theater or one of your local movie theaters, maybe a manager, and see if they could give you some perspective on what they see happening right now.
It falls right in line with what I've been trying to do, because I want people who are in the film industry. I don't care what you do. I think that would work just fine. And I know exactly who I would want to get. So I mentioned it before. this film festival that I go to every April called Panic Fest. It's in North Kansas City. And the guy who co-created it, his name is Tim. And he co-created it with the guy who owns Screenland Armor, which is a movie theater. And like I was telling you backstage, it's a movie theater for movie lovers. They have Friday Night Frights where they play old school movies, and it could be anything from an 80s slasher to Jennifer's Body, anything in between, anything older, anything newer. Sometimes they'll pair it with another movie that just came out. So they might do like a Friday the 13th movie with Vicky, just because she's in a violent nature, things like that. They have the film festival. They have a lot of stuff. So the owner is also a good person. So I would love to get like either Tim or him on there. I think I already have it written down, but if not, I will see if they're interested in coming on. That's a good suggestion.
I just feel like our collecting scene is becoming it's not becoming, it is an echo chamber where we're seeing a lot of the same opinions and like why physical media matters. Like, well, we know why it matters because that's why we did this in the first place.
Yeah.
What's next? What's beyond that? Let's have some conversations that we haven't had before. Let's talk to some people we haven't talked to before. And theaters are so important. Like screenings and things like that are so important. And they're dying. I mean, it is not a good place right now.
I'm going to ask you one more question because I know I just from like hitting the social medias and all that, and I know you're going to have some passion behind this. Tell me about your experience going to see Horizon Part 1.
All right. So I'm
going to give you full screen for this one because people need to hear this.
I was not expecting what happened at Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter
Part 1.
I was big. I bought my ticket begrudgingly. I said that in my review. I bought my ticket 3 hours, and then you add half an hour of trailers and Coca-Cola commercials and like Verizon or whatever. And I like Kevin Costner, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right? That was the movie that I credited as launching my fandom. But Kevin Costner makes very long movies. He makes
Waterworld.
yes. And if you know what happened on Waterworld, so that's the director that was Kevin Reynolds, right? Who did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And then they clash during the middle of production and Costner takes it over. He takes over production of Waterworld. It's crazy stuff. So anyway, I like Wyatt Earp. I saw Wyatt Earp in the theater. I liked it. I like Tombstone better because it's more,
me too.
It's more approachable, I guess. I'm not sure why. Some of Kevin Costner's work feels very precious. Like he's too close to it to see that it needs to be a little more approachable for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring that into Horizon, right? And I'm sitting in my theater, he's sitting in the seat. By the way, I'm one of 3 people. And my Lord, like it starts and I'm just like, oh, like sit forward. I was like, it's like this big score, big orchestral score. I'm like, I don't hear that very often. And then it's this like beautiful cinematography of the West. And like, oh, there's probably some CGI in there, but that's real. And then over the next, so like the first act of the movie is almost like a prologue. And it ends. And then I was like, wow, this movie is proving that it's willing to take its time to set the stage for what's going to unfold. And then by the time the credits are like, honestly, no, I did have full disclosure. I did have to get up and go to the bathroom. Bring back the intermission. Movies that are 3 hours.
Yes, sir.
Give us an intermission, right? Like it's so easy to do.
There's shorter movies that had intermissions back in the 50s, 60s, 70s than the long ass movies we get today with none. I sat through a theatrical screening of The Irishman. No intermission. I think I should have got an award walking out of that theater. Just hand me a trophy. You did it.
Did you slosh as you were like?
I know. I was like, beeline to the bathroom. Excuse me.
Yeah. And you did irrevocable harm to your bladder that day. You're still feeling the pain.
I did. I turned into a camel for sure. But coming out of the theater after seeing Horizon, what did you think?
I was like, what did I just see? The whole car ride home. I'm like, that was really something. That was not what I was expecting it to be. And then I was like, he did it himself, and he doesn't seem to care that it's not overly commercial, and he didn't seem to care. I was like, I wasn't. I was like, I wasn't tired of any of the characters. I don't feel like I was like, would I have cut it? I'm the guy that thinks movies should be shorter. What would I have cut? And I was like,
Right.
I couldn't cut anything. So by the time I got home, I fired up the camera and made a video at like 1 a.m. And I just admire the heck out of it because it's so. He financed it himself. He didn't finance all of it himself, but he sought independent financing. He put $38 million of his own money into it because he knows it's the right thing to do. Because this is a movie that it was a story that he wanted to tell. And I don't know who does that anymore. You can see I'm still trying to kind of work it out.
Yeah.
Like, why do I feel the way I feel? I don't even know if I could put it into words because I'm just amazed by the whole thing. It is a remarkable achievement. Whether you like the movie or not. I think in my review, I'm like, I think it's good, but whether you like it or not, I can't think of anything this ambitious ever. I mean, ever.
The only thing I could think of is that he saw an opportunity to strike while the iron was hot from Yellowstone. And the irony is he left the project while making this. But to have an audience that would be drawn to that genre of a show and then say, I could take it. And I know he started right around, or if not before, starting to be on the show. But it's kind of like that audience will translate, but I really don't think it's going to get the opportunity to be successful. I think it made like 11.5 or something around that for the weekend. And there's probably not enough word of mouth to push it to a box office success. But I do predict that the box office will be more next week if word of mouth is successful.
Yeah.
There's a couple of comments here talking about studios. They are 100% risk averse and rely on our love for what we already love. That's sad because, I mean, this next one here, Godzilla -1, impressed me a lot. That's what I was thinking of. Didn't even notice it because we finally got a Godzilla movie where we cared about the characters. That's how I see it. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you, Huck. I also sat through Killers of a Flower Moon, being a Scorsese fan, without getting up. Very brutal. This is the irony right here. It's weird that attention spans keep getting shorter. We have ads on shorts now, but movies keep getting longer without intermission too.
Yeah.
I watched Irishman on Netflix, had to stop several times on boredom. Watched Killers of the Flower Moon at home, didn't budge once. Yeah. Definitely a better movie in my opinion from Irishman to Killers. Killers was much better. But yeah, I did that too. And I didn't feel a need to go anywhere. No Camel Award for that one, but I definitely deserve one for Irishman. Yeah, we did a roundtable a couple months ago about the state of the industry between cinema, streaming, and physical media. Probably did the least on physical media, but between cinema and streaming, it's kind of like they're taking a risk on streaming, even though they're losing so much more money. And when they take the risk, they're taking a risk on something like Dell said that we already love. Your Dial of Destiny, your another DCEU movie. And, just between those two I mentioned, they lost over 600 million, between budget and box office. But the problem with it is they keep relying on streaming to save them. And I don't know if there's any saving between, every once in a while we get a hot, where did this come from moment like Barbenheimer or Inside Out, which just hit over $1 billion this weekend. But there's not enough of that to keep it sustainable. And it's sad because that's how I grew up. I grew up going to the movies. I didn't grow up, I still remember the first day I got my VCR. It's the same day that I had McDonald's chicken nuggets for the first time because it was new when I got my VCR. And I got Raiders and Romance in the Stone. First two rentals. But it's a core memory because I remember that I could watch movies in my house now.
Yep.
But today, that's everybody.
But just because you could watch movies in your house, did you stop going to the theater?
Hell no. Hell no.
And that's the
Because there's
problem, is that a
nothing
lot of
that beats
people
that
have.
big screen experience.
Yeah. There's nothing else like it.
I was a kid, that was magic. It's still magic to me.
Yeah.
And it might be less about what's on the screen and that shared experience with an audience. Me seeing Get Out or Nope is much better in the theater than it is at home. I can't see any Avatar movie at home. They suck at home. But in the theater, it looks awesome. And I know that's not just me, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
Made it through Avatar: Way of Water. God bless you. Top Gun Maverick, I could see why. Barely a bathroom break. Okay, we're approaching 2 hours. I am taking way too much of your time, but I'm having so much fun. This is everything I wanted it to be. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for inviting
Red
me.
line through number 15.
That's right.
You are welcome back anytime. If you ever need someone to be a talking head on yours, I'm available. But I want to thank you for coming on. I've been watching you so long that it's kind of like I'm not talking to my big screen TV where I watch YouTube anymore. I'm talking to the man, so I appreciate it.
Oh, that's
I
really
really
sweet.
do. It's honestly true. I don't blow smoke. No time for that in my life.
Well, thank you
But
for having me. Thank you for the interesting. You know what I love about this is that so much of what I do is focused around a disc, and this was just a conversation about movies and about the stuff that we love.
yeah,
We
yeah,
need more of this.
yeah. Thank you. I
Let's
like
do
the way
more
you
of
put
this.
that. I might make that into a short.
There you go.
It's going to be a short. I'm going to make it into a short.
Well, let me say thanks to all the people in the chat too, and I see the comments about westerns not getting enough love, and it's true.
It's
Westerns
true.
are a fundamental genre, a uniquely American genre that has somehow been dismissed over the last 15, 20 years. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, when'd you sneak in, Trini? Salute, 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 my dude. I got my 4th of July fitted on, so that's for you. We always wear the Yankees fitted, so always good to see you. Yeah, Flash, the Avatar movie sucked in theaters. I'm a sucker for great visuals, and the money that man dropped in the visuals alone made it worth seeing on a big screen. But yeah, I can watch it at home. Gravity's another one. I tried. I'm going to try again. I just got that Diamond Lux edition with Dolby Atmos, so I'm a sucker for that stuff. Thank you. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you again for checking this out. You could catch Heath on
Serial at Midnight, serialatmidnight.com, youtube.com/serial at midnight. You go to serialatmidnight.com. It's all there.
Yeah.
If you like my Apathy is the Enemy shirt, you can pick one up.
We didn't show shirts today, so you have Apathy is the Enemy. I love that. Yeah. And I have my DJ tribute jersey on. So everyone on here is a famous DJ. Jazzy Jeff is somewhere in there. So is Cool Herc, African Bambaataa, all the way down to DJ AM. Rest in peace. All right, we're wrapping it.